On that Thursday, when I finished loading my tools into my pickup truck, I was not in the best mood. The client I had been working with for the past 2 weeks seemed to have no idea what he wanted. He kept asking me to make one change after another to the original plan for the staircase I was supposed to build under the contract. The latest request, made that morning, was so extensive that I had to dismantle about half of the work I had already done. To make matters worse, I had to go back to the architect and engineer because the latest whim of this fickle jerk was impossible to implement without redrawing the structural drawings. So the next day became an unplanned day off. My name is Garrett Morrison. I am the chief designer and owner of a small carpentry workshop specializing in the design and construction of luxury staircases. My clients are wealthy owners of mansions, hotels, restaurants, and offices who can afford to pay more than $50,000 for an exclusive staircase that is a work of art. I just turned 34 and had been married for 4 years to 29-year-old Daphne Tupper. Daphne was a young and successful lawyer at the law firm Kramer, Boylan & Hendricks, specializing in commercial law and intellectual property law. We didn't have any children yet, mainly because Daphne wanted to focus on her career first. I was surprised to see my wife's car in the driveway when I got home at 4:30 p.m. Daphne usually worked late on Thursdays, so she could finish at a reasonable hour on Fridays. I entered the house through the back door, as I always did when I returned from the construction site. I had installed a small bathroom with a shower next to the door so that I could shower and change immediately after coming home without spreading dust throughout the house. The water pressure was weaker than usual. Maybe my wife was taking a shower upstairs? That was strange because Daphne usually took showers in the morning or before bed. I quickly finished up, put on my house clothes, and went upstairs to see what my wife was doing at such an early hour on a Thursday. As expected, Daphne had just gotten out of the shower and was now putting on sexy black fishnet stockings, and a new black dress was lying on the bed, waiting its turn to be worn. "Hi, honey. What are you up so early? Did I forget something? Do we have plans today that I don't remember?" She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. She seemed a little nervous, but was trying not to show it. She sighed. "No, Garrett, you didn't forget anything. I'm leaving tonight. You're not coming with me. I'll be back Sunday afternoon. I'm spending the weekend with Derek Kramer." "What? What are you talking about? Is this a business trip or something?" "No, it's not a business trip, Garrett. Derek booked a hotel room for the two of us. I'll be back with you next week, but I'm spending the weekend with him." She looked at me defiantly, but her words sounded rehearsed. "No, you're not going. I don't want my wife spending the weekend with another man. What kind of nonsense is this?" "You'd better agree, Garrett, because this is what Derek wants, and I advise you not to mess with him," she said, giggling. "Oh, I see. You're happy to be part of this plan? You want me to agree, swallow it, and let you go? So after this weekend, you'll be my faithful wife?" I asked sarcastically. "I never said it would only be this weekend. Derek already told me he wants to do this from time to time. So yeah, just agree and don't say a word. Knowing Derek, your life will be much easier if you shut up and follow the plan." "We'll see. I'm not going to put up with this nonsense, Daphne. You'd better think about what you're doing, because I'm not going to let that arrogant jerk run my life. If you think I'm a pawn, you can move around as you please without asking my opinion. You're in for a rude awakening, I'm telling you." By that time, she had finished getting ready for the evening. I went downstairs and grabbed a beer from the fridge. I saw the Mercedes pull up to the house. Mr. Smug himself got out of the car, walked up to the front door, and rang the doorbell. "Garrett, it's Derek. Open the door," she shouted from above. I quickly entered the code on the back door alarm panel, turned on the video recording on my cell phone, and hid it in my t-shirt pocket so that the camera would capture everything that was happening. Then I waited in the living room. I had known Derek Kramer since the day Daphne started working at CBH 3 years ago. I first met him at their office Christmas party. He was a man in his 40s with a very authoritative personality. He seemed very friendly with his partners, flirtatious and affable with the female employees and their wives, but in the presence of his employees and their husbands, his entire demeanor exuded arrogance and contempt. I didn't like this guy right away. Daphne ran down the stairs in a rage. She went to open the door. I watched the scene from the living room, sipping my beer. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Derek. I don't know where my husband's manners have gone," she said in a submissive tone. She lowered her voice to say something else to Asaya, but I couldn't hear her. "Hey, Dusty. I hear you've got a problem with Daphne going away with me for the weekend?" He boomed like a school principal addressing a small child as he entered the living room to talk to me. I couldn't believe the nerve of this guy. He was so smug, he thought he owned my house. "Hey, asshole, get out of my house or I'll call the police," I said, clenching my fists. He started laughing. Daphne grinned next to him. "And what do you think the police will do? I'll tell you, nothing. They won't do anything. You know why? Because, hey, are you filming me, asshole?" He had just seen my cell phone. He grabbed it from me and tried to stop the recording, but the phone was locked with a password. He threw it on the ceramic floor. Of course, the ceramic won. "Listen to me, smartass. Your wife is coming with me for the weekend, whether you like it or not. And she's going to spend time with me whenever I want. And no, a dumbass like you has no say in the matter, got it? And if you do anything to stop me, you'll regret it. Hell will be paradise compared to your life. So you're going to sit here quietly this weekend and keep your mouth shut. If I hear that you've upset Daphne, threatened her with divorce, or done anything else stupid, like trying to contact my wife, everyone will find out about your shady money laundering operations and the child pornography stored on your computer." I decided to play dumb. I doubt anyone will find out. Considering that I've never been involved in money laundering, downloaded, or even looked at child pornography, I replied mechanically. "Oh, that's easy to arrange, you know. Downloading material onto your computer is a piece of cake. I have plenty of things that could destroy your reputation in an instant." I decided this was a good opportunity to play even dumber. "Child pornography is illegal. If you can download it onto my computer, then you already have illegal material, right?" I asked naively. "That's the difference between you and me. Some things that are illegal for you are perfectly acceptable for influential people like me who have the right connections. So I strongly recommend that you continue to play with the working class and not bother people from high society, understand?" I could hardly believe what I had just heard. Such nonsense would be over the top even in a comedy movie, but this guy in my living room was completely serious. "Oh, and one more thing. Don't think about getting revenge on me or Daphne. That includes getting revenge on her by sleeping with someone else. I don't want to catch anything from you and then you pass it on to Daphne and then I catch it, you know? Because I'm not going to ask Daphne to deny you sex, honestly. At least not yet. See, I'm not such a bad guy, right? The point is, if you cross the line, I'll find out. Got it? Now go on, sweetheart." They returned to the front door. Daphne grabbed her bag and left. She didn't say goodbye or even look at me. Sweetheart. He called my wife sweetheart. The whole situation was so surreal that I couldn't even feel pure anger. My feelings were more of a mixture of anger and amazement. At that moment, I blessed the burglar who broke into my house a year before I met Daphne. I was so upset that I installed a complete video surveillance and alarm system with motion-activated cameras and voice-activated microphones that could record everything that happened in the house and store the recordings in the cloud. I never showed Daphne that the system could be switched to recording mode when we were in the house, so she had no way of knowing that I had turned it on before she opened the front door to let that slimy bastard in. I also turned on the recording on my cell phone. In reality, it was more of a distraction. I was more or less counting on Kramer noticing this and finding a way to turn off the recording. That would make him lower his guard and talk more freely, thinking he wasn't being filmed anymore. I hoped it would be a good way to gather useful material for a possible divorce. That bastard gave me way more than I expected. The cell phone now lying on the floor was my work phone. After I started working with more affluent clients, I quickly realized that if I gave them my main phone number, I would be on call almost around the clock, because some of these people are like children. When they want something, they want it right away. In their minds, there was no such thing as an inconvenient time to call, even after 11 p.m. or on weekends. I could turn off my work cell phone at the end of the day and read my messages the next morning. At least I wasn't completely cut off from communication. I grabbed my personal phone and called my business lawyer and best friend, Harry. Harry Davenport had married my older sister, Jennifer, 10 years ago. They were the perfect happy couple until tragedy struck. They had been married for 4 years when Jennifer, while traveling with 3 friends in Guadeloupe, was caught in a deadly wave and drowned. My parents and I loved Harry, and even after my sister's death, he always remained part of our family. 3 years after Jennifer's death, he met another woman. Christine is a fantastic woman, whom he married a year after they met. My parents and I, along with Daphne, were invited to the wedding. To this day, Harry and Christine are like brother and sister to me. "Harry, I need your help," I shouted when he answered. I explained the situation to him. I repeated the threats Kramer had made before leaving with my wife for the weekend. Harry understood the threats. "Okay, don't leave the house, don't call anyone, don't answer the phone, and don't open the door to strangers, and turn off your computer. Christine and I will be there in an hour. We'll bring dinner." I deleted everything that was left on my work cell phone, grabbed another beer, and sat down in the living room to calm down after the events of the last hour. I knew Daphne was attracted to Dickhead, or rather, she was attracted to the aura of power he exuded, but I never thought she would dump me like a piece of trash and leave with him. I thought she loved me as much as I loved her. This was a loud wake-up call. I met Daphne 5 years ago at a party thrown by a friend of a friend. I don't even remember how I ended up there that night. I only knew 1 or 2 people. The birthday boy was Daphne's brother's best friend, who couldn't come because he was in the army and had been sent to Afghanistan. I spent the whole evening talking to Daphne. A week later, we started dating, and a year later, we were married. At the time, I was still working for Mr. Duncan. Craig Duncan was the founder of a small company. He was an excellent carpenter and well known in our neighborhood. But his accounting and management skills were practically non-existent. He hired me as a part-time accountant to do his bookkeeping while I was still in college. A couple of months after I started working for him, he got 3 large orders that he couldn't handle at the time, but his customers didn't want to cancel. So he asked me to fill in for him and help him out on the job. I started out as an assistant, running errands, ordering supplies, and keeping track of the long details he had to work with. But I was a quick learner, and it turned out I had a real talent for the work, so after a few months of training, I was able to handle the simple tasks on my own and help with the more complicated ones. I obtained my accounting degree, but since I really enjoyed the practical work, I also started an internship and obtained my certification a few years later. Soon I became Mr. Duncan's assistant, and when he retired, my parents helped me by providing the money to buy out his share in 2 years. I knew very well that the lawyers at CBH considered me uneducated, a dusty worker, and did not think highly of me, but I didn't care. My company was thriving. I didn't bid on many projects, but the ones I took on were complex and very profitable. Over the previous months, I had hired 2 assistants, and my net income and value were higher than most of the lawyers working with my wife. But even she didn't know that. My thoughts were interrupted by Christine and Harry, who brought Chinese takeout and beer. "Are you okay, Garrett? I can't believe Daphne did that to you. It's so unlike her." Harry gave me a manly hug. "Don't worry, buddy, we'll work it out. Let's have dinner, and then I'll watch your recording." I told them about the cold reception Daphne had given me when I got home that afternoon. After dinner, I took my laptop and opened the files with the recordings from the 2 cameras and the microphone. Fortunately, the conversations were very clear. "I can't believe what I just heard," Harry said. "Pretty arrogant bastard, huh?" "No, Pretty stupid bastard, Harry replied. How old is he? 40 to 42? That means he's been practicing law for about 15 years, so he's not a rookie. But he's so smug that it doesn't even occur to him that sometimes you just need to shut up. Seriously, your idea to trick him into thinking he wasn't being recorded after he destroyed your cell phone was very, very clever. He took the bait and told us everything we needed to know. Okay, but can I really use this if the recording was made without his consent? I asked. So I have nothing to fear? Is that what you're saying? I asked. No, that's not what I mean. We have to be extremely careful. On the way here, I did a little investigation. Chris was kind enough to give me a ride and take care of food. It seems that our man, Kramer, is the son of the founder of their law firm. You already knew that, didn't you? Harry explained. I nodded. But you may not know that his father, Marvin Kramer, had quite a reputation. He wasn't a very good lawyer, but most of the judges in the area were his former classmates. Since he knew everyone personally, it was easy for him to win most of his cases. Unfortunately, his son Derek was a chip off the old block. That's what makes him dangerous. He has an extensive network of very friendly judges, and if he files a lawsuit, it will be extremely difficult to get a ruling in our favor, no matter how illegal his schemes are. Wow. So you're saying that no matter what I do, I'm screwed? No. Not necessarily. It will be difficult to win, but not impossible. I have connections, too. The main thing is to gather enough evidence to make the case irrefutable. I have a plan. But you said the judges will always rule in his favor, I asked. Not if it goes to criminal court. We'll try to make sure that doesn't happen. We were interrupted by a knock at the door. A petite brunette was standing on the porch. Hello, Mr. Morrison? She asked. Oh, hi, Laura, come in, Harry said from behind me. Garrett, this is Laura Foster. Laura is a computer specialist at the private investigation agency we work with. I took the liberty of contacting her after talking to you tonight. We told Laura about the situation and showed her the recording of our conversation, especially the part where Kramer threatened to download compromising material onto my computer. Laura looked into it carefully and then explained the plan of action. Okay, they can do one of two things. Either they'll come here during the day, probably with your wife's help, sit down at your computer and download their dirt, changing the date to make it look like the material was downloaded before Kramer's visit. If they do that, your camera will record everything. Just make sure you turn it on before you leave for work in the morning. She took a small gray box out of her bag. They could also gain remote access to your computer to do their dirty work. I'll install this module in front of your modem so we can record anyone who tries to access your router, as well as what they try to download or upload. Take a few minutes to transfer all personal or confidential data and files to a flash drive and delete everything from your computer. The idea is to prevent them from accessing it. I'll help you with that, if only to make sure you don't leave any hidden data on your computer that you don't know about, Laura explained. She really seemed to know what she was talking about. Garrett joined the conversation. You see, Garrett, right now all you have is a recording to bring him to court for blackmail. Your case will be closed before you can explain anything because in the eyes of the public, it's not a very serious crime, and the judges he knows will most likely be on his side. So the best thing that could happen is if Kramer really did download the illegal material onto your computer and told the police that he has evidence that you possess illegal material. Then we would have proof that everything was done without your involvement. Thanks to the warning Kramer gave us, which you recorded, we will have enough material to bring criminal charges against him. At this stage, none of his judge friends will want to look like they are condoning criminal activity, especially involving child pornography, so they will turn their backs on him. That's cruel and perverted, I said. Yes, but Kramer is like that too. One last thing. Can you do without your computer for the next few days? If Kramer goes ahead with his plan and reports you, the police inspectors will want to check your computer records to find out who actually accessed the illegal files after they were downloaded. If you don't touch your computer, the records will be clean, and that will be even better for us. Also, make sure your cell phone doesn't connect to your home Wi-Fi for the next few days, in case they try to use your phone instead of your computer. Laura installed the tracking module and deleted all confidential information, including my company documents, from my computer and mobile phone. The module will send us copies of all access requests. I'll contact Harry and you as soon as we have anything. Good luck, guys, Laura said before leaving. Okay, now back to more mundane matters, Harry said. Garrett, do you want to file for divorce right now or wait until Daphne gets back to see if we can work things out? No, I want a divorce. Yesterday, if possible. I can't stay married to someone who is so easily manipulated and corrupted by self-proclaimed influential people. No, I want out. No questions asked. Okay, I'll call Claudia Milton tomorrow. She's a family law expert at my firm. She's a good, honest, and effective professional. I'll ask her to call you as soon as possible. You'll like her, Harry said. We talked a little more. I gave Harry the access code to my recording system so he could see what was going on live and access what was stored in the cloud. Christine and Harry left around 11 p.m. I took a Zopiclone and fell asleep half an hour later. The next day at 8:30 a.m., Claudia Milton called me. She had just spoken to Harry, who had told her all the details of my situation. She was waiting for me at her office at 11 a.m. The meeting with her went well. She knew about Derek Kramer's reputation and was very sorry that I had crossed paths with this man of questionable reputation. She assured me that since I had bought the house before meeting Daphne and her name did not appear on the title deed, the house belonged to me. We didn't have any children, so the divorce would be very straightforward. What about my company? Can they force me to sell it and split the money? I asked. Claudia called Harry and asked him to join us. Harry quickly reassured everyone. Don't worry about it. There's a clause in your prenuptial agreement that clearly states that your company belongs to you and she can't claim it. Of course, they'll probably try anyway, but I've checked twice and they don't stand a chance if they go down that route. I left Claudia Milton's office at 12:30 and took care of all the financial matters as she had instructed me. She said there was nothing more I could do at this point, that she would take care of everything, and that Daphne would be served with the notice at her office on Monday morning. I also went to the store to replace my broken cell phone and spent the rest of the weekend working in the garden and catching up on episodes of my favorite TV shows. Part of me was angry at Daphne, but another part still couldn't believe what was happening. I knew that eventually I would mourn the loss of my marriage, but at that moment I was too wound up to feel sadness. I didn't want Daphne to come home on Sunday. I wavered between sleeping in the guest room or sending her to the guest room. There was no way I was going to sleep with that stupid bitch again. In the end, I decided that it was my house, and she was the one who left me, so I wasn't going to give her my bed. She would sleep in the guest room until she found an apartment and moved out. I took all her things and toiletries to the guest room, then went to the hardware store, bought a new lock and key, installed them on my bedroom door, and left the key in my pocket. When I heard that bitch's car pull up the next evening, I turned on the security camera. I saw Daphne kissing her boss for a long time, then getting out of his car and waving to him as he drove away. When she came in, I was reading in the living room. "Hi, honey. How was your weekend?" she asked. She seemed nervous. She tried not to show it, but I could tell she wasn't as calm as she was pretending to be. I didn't even look at her, let alone answer. "Fine. Keep sulking and pouting. Derek was right when he said you'd act just like this, that you don't have the brains to understand my needs or the maturity to accept your inability to satisfy them." She went upstairs. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. "Garrett Morrison? What is this? You put a lock on our bedroom door?" "Correction. My bedroom," I replied calmly. "All your things are in the guest bedroom. You'll sleep there until you find an apartment." What the hell? Wait, I'm telling Derek about this. This wasn't part of the deal. Deal? What deal? I didn't sign or even accept your stupid terms. Either you sleep in the guest room or you're out. Maybe Kramer's wife will find a place for you in her marital bed? She shot me a murderous look. Without saying a word, she rushed into the guest room and slammed the door. I followed her upstairs and shouted through the door, "By the way, what about the agreement? What do I get?" She didn't answer. I went back upstairs. 15 minutes passed before my phone rang. It was a series of text messages from a number I didn't recognize. "What's that I hear, cuckold? You won't let Daphne into her own bedroom? I thought I explained the program to you in simple terms. Even a store monkey like you can understand that." Listen, today I'll turn a blind eye to your childish tantrum and let you cool off. But tomorrow, you'll make Daphne her favorite dinner and apologize to her for your behavior. If you behave yourself for the rest of the week, I'll let her have sex with you next weekend. But if you don't do as I say, you'll find out that my threats are real, very real. So do as I say and don't ask any questions. Is that clear? I couldn't believe my eyes. This guy was on the verge of insensitivity, delusion, and stupidity. I didn't respond, but I took a screenshot of the conversation and sent it to Harry. Harry replied 3 minutes later. "Unbelievable. This guy thinks he's cool, but he's just a world-class idiot. Don't delete the conversation and don't respond to him." Kramer sent a couple more confirmation requests, which I didn't respond to. Eventually, he stopped. I didn't see Daphne again that evening. I went to bed, locking the door and leaving the recording system on. I sent a text message to one of my assistants to say I would be in late the next day. I waited until Daphne had left in the morning before getting up and getting ready. I made myself breakfast and ate it while downloading the recordings made by the system during the night. Daphne didn't leave the guest room until morning. She took a shower in the guest bathroom and left without eating breakfast. But I was surprised that she didn't try to do anything with my computer, as I had expected. I received a message from Claudia Milton. "Hi, Garrett. Just wanted to confirm that the divorce papers will be delivered today at 10 o'clock. I also let Harry know. Anyway, have the best day possible." Before leaving for the store, I double-checked that the system in the house was still recording and that I would receive a notification on my phone if it went off. At 11 a.m., I had a meeting with an architect to discuss the latest changes requested by my current client. Before the meeting, I did a few odd jobs. I expected Daphne to call a few minutes after she received the documents, but nothing happened. At 10:45, I texted Harry that I was surprised Daphne hadn't tried to contact me. "That means she talked to Kramer about the divorce papers. They may already be preparing threats. I'll call Laura. Stay in touch," Harry replied. The meeting went well. I was able to focus with surprising ease. I spent the rest of the day servicing tools and cleaning up the workshop. At 3:12 p.m., I received a notification on my cell phone. I texted Harry that everything was going according to plan. He replied with a thumbs up. I logged in and was able to see and hear what was happening in my house in real time. Daphne entered with a man I didn't know. They went into our home office and turned on my computer. They didn't say a word. It took the man a few minutes to crack my password, after which he inserted a flash drive into my computer and spent a good 10 minutes doing his dirty work. Fortunately, I managed to take clear photos of his face. Daphne went to the guest room and packed her things into trash bags. Her suitcases were in the closet in the bedroom, poor thing. When the man was done, he turned off the computer and told Daphne he was leaving. Daphne finished packing and left the house at 3:56 p.m. Harry called me a few seconds after the recording ended. "Okay, Garrett, now go home and act normal. I think they'll call the police tonight or tomorrow, and an inspector will come to see you. It will take a few hours to get a search warrant, so expect them tomorrow." "Are they going to arrest me?" I asked. "Possibly. But if they arrest you, don't say anything. Don't answer their questions. I've already contacted my good friend Stephen Lindsay. He's a criminal defense attorney. I took the liberty of passing him all the necessary materials, including the recordings. He says it will be the easiest case of the year," Harry replied. I gave Harry the code to turn the alarm on and off if I was arrested. We chatted a little more, then hung up. On the way home, I was almost hysterical. Nothing happened that night. No one from the police came. There was no call from Daphne, no nasty messages from that jerk Kramer. I made myself a sandwich and ate it in front of the TV. I thought about calling my parents and telling them what had happened, but in the end, I decided it was better to wait until the storm had blown over. I wasn't sure my mother would understand anything about hacking into a computer system or videos stored in the cloud. It would only alarm her, and she wouldn't be able to help in this situation. The next day, I was at the store when I received another notification that someone was in the house. I did the same thing I did the day before. I texted Harry and logged into my system. The police broke into my house and tried to disable the alarm. They must have succeeded because I lost the connection. Harry texted me that he had seen everything and sent the photos to Stephen Lindsay. About an hour after the police arrived at my house, 2 more police officers came to my shop and arrested me. They handcuffed me and put me in a police car. They quickly read me my rights and started asking questions, which I refused to answer. When I arrived at the police station, they took my cell phone and wallet and put me in a cell with 5 other guys. Communication was limited. Everyone tried to focus on the tiles on the floor. About 3 hours later, a guard came and took me to an interview room where I was supposed to meet with my lawyer. "What the hell is this?" I asked the guard. "You didn't even tell me who my lawyer is." The guy didn't answer. He left me alone in the room. 10 minutes later, the door opened, and Derek Kramer walked in with a smile as wide as the Golden Gate Bridge. He sat down across from me without saying a word. I looked him in the eye and said nothing. Satisfied that he had established his superiority and made it clear that he was winning the war, he gave me a triumphant look and finally spoke. "Now you see how serious I am?" I didn't answer. "I asked you a question, you little punk. Answer me." Again, silence. "It'll be your word against mine, Morrison. The word of a carpenter against the word of one of the most famous lawyers in town. Guess what's going to happen?" he asked with his usual smirk. He stood up. "Well, looks like you need to think about what I said. We'll talk tomorrow morning. Maybe a night in this cell with your friends will bring you to your senses," he said as he left the room. I was taken back to my cell. By that time, only 4 other guys were left there. In the middle of the day, another man came to see me. I was taken to the same interrogation room. A tall, blond man with a stern face was waiting for me there. His face said, "Don't mess with me." He stood up when I entered. "Good afternoon, Garrett. Nice to meet you. I'm Stephen Lindsay. You can call me Stephen. Harry called me this afternoon and said he couldn't get in touch with you. Considering everything that's happened, we thought you might have been arrested and brought here." I told Stephen everything that had happened that day, including Derek Kramer's threats. Stephen was stunned, but he didn't say anything. "Okay. Tomorrow morning you need to report to the judge. The judge will probably give you a harsh sentence, but don't worry. Harry will take care of everything. I know it's going to be a rough night, but don't lose hope. Harry and I are with you. In the meantime, hang in there. Don't answer any questions. I've officially taken your case, and I'll make sure Kramer doesn't visit you again." The next day, I appeared before the judge. I was charged with possession of child pornography. Of course, I pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $25,000. I was released early in the day. I was forbidden to leave town, contact my soon-to-be ex-wife, Derek Kramer, or anyone from his office, and I was also forbidden to be alone with anyone under the age of 18. But at least I could work at my store. My cell phone and wallet were returned to me. Stephen invited me to a late lunch, and we chatted some more. I didn't want to say too much to the police yesterday because they have ears everywhere, but yesterday I made a few calls, did some digging, and found something interesting about our friend Derek Kramer. Let me tell you a few things that will put your mind at ease. First, when the police get a search warrant, it takes at least a few hours before they can examine the materials they find and get an arrest warrant. In your case, you were brought here before they had even finished searching your home. Second, you weren't allowed to call me or Harry, but Derek Kramer was allowed to see you. These two factors clearly show that this was all staged, and that's completely illegal. Yes, but Harry says Kramer has all the judges on his hook, I said. Oh, no, not all of them. You know, you can't make that many friends without making enemies, he said with a wink. I have no idea what I'll find at home. I hope my loving wife and her jerk didn't steal everything. Don't worry about that. Harry stopped by right after the police left. He rebooted the system and turned on the recording. No one showed up. I returned to the shop to pick up my car, then drove home to take a well-deserved and much-needed shower. The architect had left a message saying they had updated the plan and received the client's approval. That was good news. It meant I could get back to work the next day and occupy my mind with something else. The house was a mess. They had searched everywhere. Except for the fake computer, I knew they couldn't find anything incriminating. I started cleaning everything up. That night I cried for the first time. Just a week ago, I was a happy man in what I thought was a good marriage. Now I was a suspect in a crime, on the verge of divorce, and a puppet in the hands of my wife's boss. What did I do to deserve this shit? At least I didn't see any reporters. They were probably too busy tearing each other apart over the recently discovered multi-billion-dollar hole in the state budget to pay attention to little Garrett. Finally, at the end of the following week, Stephen called me with some important news. All charges against me had been dropped. And from the looks of it, the inspector leading the investigation wasn't someone to mess with, especially when it came to blackmail. Apparently, he wasn't particularly impressed by Kramer's ploy and made sure that Derek Kramer was charged with blackmail, falsification of evidence, and possession of child pornography in the near future. Daphne was charged with aiding and abetting these crimes. Harry called me 10 minutes after I hung up to invite me to dinner. On the way to Harry's, I got a call from Claudia Milton, our family lawyer. Garrett, Daphne's lawyer called me this afternoon and said she is willing to sign the divorce papers without any changes, but on one condition. She wants to meet with you alone for an hour. She says it can be at my office. Daphne was probably the last person I wanted to see, but I told myself that if this meeting would speed up the divorce, it would be a good investment of my time. I told Claudia to go ahead, and I would meet with Daphne. I had a pleasant evening with Harry and Christine. It was the first truly relaxing evening I'd had in 2 weeks. Christine made coconut shrimp with rice. It was simply divine. When I got home that evening, I felt calm. My meeting with Daphne was scheduled for the following Wednesday. I was nervous about seeing her, even though I had no reason to be, since I was the victim of this pathetic conspiracy. When I arrived, I was directed to Claudia's office, who asked me to come in a few minutes early to talk. Garrett, I don't know what she wants to tell you, but I have to warn you. She's facing criminal charges. Don't give her any ammunition. Don't say anything that could be used against you if you have to testify in court. We don't have the right to search her for microphones or recording devices, so keep in mind that she may be recording you. Okay, thanks for the warning, I said. I was led into a small interrogation room. Daphne was already there. I expected to see the same bitchy, arrogant Daphne I had seen in previous weeks, but the Daphne sitting in that room was a broken woman. I felt a wave of compassion for her, but the vivid memory of her little show with Kramer before I left for the weekend quickly dispelled any positive feelings I might have had for her. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Garrett. What can you say to me after everything you've done to me? She began to cry. Garrett, I'm so ashamed of what I did to you. You're a wonderful husband. You don't deserve this. I was completely under Derek Kramer's influence. When I found out that the charges against you had been dropped and that we would most likely be tried together, I was in such shock that the spell was broken. I can't look at myself in the mirror, and all for the most pathetic sex of my life. For the next 30 minutes, she continued to improvise, analyzing her behavior. She didn't ask me any questions or try to get any information out of me. I understand that it's over between us, Garrett. If I were you, I would do the same thing and file for divorce. So no, I don't blame you for divorcing me. I want to tell you that I quit my job. I told Derek Kramer that I don't want to talk to him anymore. I moved back in with my parents. I told them everything. They're mad at me. Let's just say the atmosphere at home is far from warm and cozy. I looked at her, saying nothing. To be honest, I couldn't think of anything clever to say in response. She had ruined everything, and now she would have to deal with it. The next few months, maybe even years, are going to be tough for me, Garrett. I don't know what life has in store for me. The only thing I hope is that in a few years, when all is said and done, I'll have a chance to at least remain friends with you. That's too far away, Daphne, too far. We'll see when we get there. Good luck. I got up and left the room. Part of me still loved her, but I couldn't be with her again. I had dreamed of revenge, but events had made her an unhappy woman. She had learned her lesson, and there was no point in continuing my revenge. Daphne was able to strike a deal with the prosecution in exchange for her full cooperation with the authorities against Derek Kramer. She moved to another city. I have lost touch with her since then. When the charges against Kramer were made public, 2 more people came forward against him and filed complaints of blackmail. As a result, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Since the police had recordings of all my conversations with him, I didn't even have to testify. After Kramer was convicted, I filed a civil suit against him and his firm, or what was left of it. I managed to get $2 million, a significant portion of which went to Harry. I pretended to be outraged. But it was a joke. Harry had helped me so much that I was happy to give him some of the money he deserved. My company is thriving. I am in the final stages of negotiations to acquire a manufacturer of specialty doors. It will be a good addition to what we do. I now have 6 employees, and they are like a second family to me. A few days after my divorce was finalized, I was invited to a barbecue hosted by Harry and Christine. I had never met Christine's younger sister before. Katie and I hit it off right away. We've been dating for a few weeks now. We'll see where life takes us. A few weeks after the civil case against CBH and Kramer was settled, I visited Kramer in prison. I told the guard that I needed to talk to Kramer and that I didn't want him to leave until I was done. The guy smiled and said I could relax. I could tell Kramer anything I wanted. Kramer walked in and, seeing me, turned to leave. The guard ordered him to sit down and listen. "What do you want, cuckold?" he began. I looked at him with a sly smile. "Oh, you threw the first punch? Interesting. I hear your wife Jessica is filing for divorce. Maybe we should invite her over for dinner and give her a night she'll never forget." "You fucking bastard! If you do that—" "Don't waste your pathetic saliva, asshole. I already did that. The little hummingbird she has tattooed on her left thigh is just adorable, isn't it, Horns?" I asked with a smirk. He blushed like a beetroot. He was about to threaten me again. But at the last moment, he realized that it wouldn't help his case. "Anyway, I didn't come here to talk about Jessica. I just wanted to tell you that you're an idiot who needs to be reminded from time to time that he's an idiot. You see, threatening someone in their own home and explaining in advance what you're going to do to them if they don't comply with your ridiculous demands isn't very smart, is it? Even a carpenter knows that. Let's just say you outsmarted me this time." I started laughing. He boiled over. "Oh, and wasn't it you who told me that possessing certain materials is illegal for an ordinary person like me, but perfectly acceptable for an influential person like you? I admire your power so much. I bow down before your greatness. Maybe it's your jumpsuit. It suits you so well." Kramer was so angry that he was close to a nervous breakdown. "Before I go, I want to give you something that Jessica and Daphne think you might find useful someday," I said. I handed him the folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and looked at it for a few seconds. "What the hell is this?" he asked. "Here's an example," I laughed. "It's a drawing of female genitalia." I pointed to the exact spot on the drawing. "They wanted you to know what to do right here." Anniversaries come and go, but this one was worth celebrating. It was the first anniversary of the day I realized that my marriage was over. I know what you're thinking. Who celebrates something like that? Well, I'm not so much celebrating the bad stuff as taking a moment to acknowledge that I got through it and came out stronger. On this day a year ago, I sat in my office and thought, I didn't sign up for this, did I? I remember the vows, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Death seemed like the way out. It was my exit strategy. You see, on that day, I found out that my beautiful and loving wife of 6 years, my best friend, the woman who was everything to me, was a cheating slut. I know what you're thinking. You think the signs were there. She stayed out late, took showers as soon as she got home, was always too tired for sex, and got annoyed with me over every little thing. None of that. I was just an ignorant fool. So how did I find out? It was Wednesday, and it was almost lunchtime. I was returning to the office after an unplanned visit to a client and thought I'd buy a fried fish sandwich at a small shop I know well. They call it Kit, and it's made with fresh fish, fried with tartar sauce, lettuce, and tomatoes, rolled up in a roll. It's like fish in a bun. You know how it is when things are going well. Everything is falling into place, the clients are happy, and you enjoy thinking about the nice lunch that awaits you in just a few minutes? That's how it was. I was fat, stupid, and happy. That's when it happened. I stopped at a traffic light when I saw my beautiful wife's car, moving in the other direction, turn right into the parking lot of the local motel called Tell No One. I thought, what the hell? I turned right into the parking lot of a gas station, pulled into a vacant spot, and watched as she got out of her car and headed straight for one of the rooms. She knocked, the door opened, and she walked in as if she had done it 1,000 times before. What the hell? You probably think I ran across the street and started banging on the door. Then I broke down the door and beat up her lover with my bare paws. Now you think I slipped across the street and came in from the other side, where I found the curtains slightly open. I peeked between the curtains and saw everything I needed to know. No, that's not right either. I needed to know, but I didn't need her to know that I knew. I just found a place where I could sit quietly in my car and watch that door. An hour after she arrived, she left. 5 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit came out of the room, got into the Lexus, and drove away. Typical. I always thought that Lexus was an overpriced product for people who wanted to show off. That day, I was useless. I didn't even try to work. I just sat in my office and studied divorce laws on the internet. Everything was as bad as I had heard before. Regardless of the reason for the divorce, no fault or adultery, the result was the same. Damn her. They had to pay. Then I realized that I didn't even know his name. How was I going to make him pay if I didn't know who he was? That night, fate intervened. I barely said 2 words to her all evening, and she asked me what had happened. What the hell did she think? Wasn't it like that? Did she feel guilty? Was she afraid that I knew something? Or were her thoughts so chaotic and her behavior so erratic that she couldn't connect my attitude with her actions? I was just watching the nightly news, and there was a local report about a bank robbery during lunchtime. The reporters had video footage of the robbers outside, and the woman who participated in the raid looked something like my wife. The female robber was wearing a COVID mask, but her hair and eyes, as well as her height and build, made her a good look-alike for the woman I married. Of course, I knew it wasn't her because my wife was in that motel room sleeping with some jerk in a Lexus, but I could pretend to be stupid. Damn, maybe I'm not even playing. The next morning, I called the police and asked about the robbery. They told me they were working on a few leads, which in cop speak means we don't have anything. So I innocently told them that the burglar looked very similar to a woman who lives across the street from me, and I gave them her name. I also told them that she had recently bought a new car. This was half true because I had bought it. and I happened to find out that his wife wasn't home when the robbery took place. The latter was damn true. I thought they would knock on the front door, have an awkward conversation with the prostitute, and at worst, I would get a good laugh out of it, which would help me get through the next few weeks while I filed for divorce. Oh no, it turned out much better. When the cops saw that she really looked like the mugger, and she couldn't explain where she was at the time of the robbery, they took her to the police station for what they euphemistically called an interview, where they forced her to confess where she had been and with whom. Anyone who heard her could easily guess what she was doing. They kept her at the station while they checked her alibi. This is a simplified way of saying that they put her in a cell and went to the house of this man. When he wasn't home, his wife gave them his work address. Her husband's interest in her did not escape his wife's attention. When he tried to deny his relationship with my wife, they went to a motel and got the video recordings. His appearance on screen did not increase the police's love for him, but it did provide them both with an alibi. It turns out that lying to the police is actually a crime, and so that evening they returned to his home to charge him with a minor offense. I secretly suspect that they deliberately waited until he returned home to arrest him in front of his wife. This did not result in any significant fines or prison time for the scumbag, but it did lead to his divorce. The story was too juicy to be kept secret, and the incident with the cheating wife quickly became a running joke in the neighborhood, which the police soon told the couple. The couple told their friends, and their friends told their friends, and soon my wife and her lover became the laughing stock of the whole town. Even the judge who heard my divorce petition laughed when he realized what she was like. In the end, the divorce was final. She did everything that was expected of her and said all the usual cliches, but the trust was broken and cannot be repaired in this life. Wherever she went, she heard whispers and muffled laughter behind her back, and soon she left the city. I have no idea where she is or if they are together, and now I don't care. I'm moving forward. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if it was worth all the effort. I knew she was cheating on me, and I was glad to break up with her because of it. But I wanted to expose her to public ridicule as a cheater, who had to confess her infidelity to avoid arrest for armed robbery. I imagined how she would have to admit it. Of course, I am a liar and a swindler, but I am not a robber. This brought me less satisfaction than I had hoped, but I must admit I would do it again if I were faced with the same situation. In the end, 2 police officers paid me a visit. Anonymity doesn't mean anything, so they knew perfectly well that it was me who called them and told them about my wife. Officially, they weren't surprised. Unofficially, I offered to buy each of them a beer, and we decided to consider it a small fine. It seems that one of them was divorced and the other was getting divorced, and they were impressed by my creativity. Just don't do that again. That's all they said to me. I wasn't sure if they were referring to my wife as a thief or talking about marrying her, but in any case, I agreed to both. And here I am, a year later. I got rid of the deception that haunted me, and I am rebuilding my life. I had a few close friends who were actually my wife's friends, and they knew about her betrayal, so it wasn't hard for me to cut them out of my life. Then I doubled my efforts toward the good friends who supported me. I didn't date anyone until the divorce was final. I spent that time sorting out my emotions. Then, about a month ago, I met a wonderful woman my age. She is also divorced from a cheating husband. We have so much in common. She is also rebuilding her life, and she has also made it her life's work to find the best bourbon produced in the world. We consider this our sacred mission and take it very seriously. Maybe we will succeed, maybe we won't. We are taking our time. Right now, I am enjoying every minute I can spend with her, and tonight she will help me celebrate my divorce. My wife, Jessie, came into the house after yoga or wherever she disappears to on Saturday mornings and asked why my suitcases were in my SUV. I looked at her. "Jack, please tell me what's going on." I sent her a photo, a selfie of my naked wife and a naked man in front of a mirror. They were hugging, so the photo was decent. When she saw the photo, she said, "He only sent it because I broke up with him." "Please, Jack, don't leave. Let me explain." I couldn't say a word, so I sent her another message. "No, I don't want to hear anything. I don't care what you say. I'm leaving." I left the house and she ran after me. She tried to get into my SUV as I was pulling out of the driveway, but she tripped and fell to the ground. I turned off my phone and headed to a hotel I had booked 3 hours away from home. Once I was settled in, I closed all of our accounts and found a place to live for the next month. The only time I turned on my phone was on Monday when I was at work. There were literally 100 missed calls with voicemails and almost as many text messages from Jesse. I sent our 3 kids a photo and wrote, "Your mom found someone else? We're getting divorced." The kids tried to call and text me, but I really couldn't talk about it. This triggered a new wave of calls and messages from Jesse. A friend recommended a lawyer, and I made an appointment for Friday. It didn't matter that she had cheated on me. She would still get half of my retirement fund and half of the house. I didn't care. The next week, she was served with divorce papers. The following Wednesday, Jesse received the papers and tried to break into my house. I had already blocked her. We were working on several government contracts, so security was pretty tight. Jesse didn't give up and was arrested for trespassing. I ended up in a small, shabby apartment that seemed completely unsuitable for me. The divorce was dragging on, but I didn't care. The only thing that bothered me was that my lawyer called me every week and said nothing. Finally, I got the long-awaited call. Jesse was demanding counseling. My lawyer made it clear that I had no choice if I didn't want to end up in court for contempt of court and in county jail, and I had to at least pretend to participate in the counseling sessions. Jesse began the first session with an apology and an admission that it was a mistake. I printed out several copies of the photo and metadata, showing that the photo had been taken 3 months before I received it. At the bottom, I wrote, "It wasn't a mistake. It was months of mistakes." Jesse ran out of the room. The counselor asked me if I saw any chance of reconciliation, and I shook my head. He asked if I was a man of few words. I nodded. He laughed and said that the court had ordered 12 sessions to be held every 2 weeks and wished me luck. I decided I was dismissed and left. Jesse began the next session by explaining why she had cheated on me. While she was talking, I looked out the window. I was a civil engineer and was fascinated by the old railroad bridge across the street. Jesse began complaining that I wasn't listening to her, so I repeated word for word everything she had said in the last 5 minutes, except for the word cheated, which I replaced with unfaithful. She started crying again and left. I smiled at the counselor and left. Jesse started the 3rd week by trying to talk to me instead of the counselor and asked if I could at least talk to her. I shook my head. She asked if I could find it in myself to forgive her. I shook my head. Jesse fell to her knees in front of me. "Please, Jack, say something, anything, yell at me, curse me, call me a whore, just let me hear your voice." I shook my head and left. That was our last session. It was a difficult decision, but I decided to buy out Jesse's share of the house. I ordered a large dumpster and threw away everything that was left of Jesse, including all of our things from the bedroom. After the fiasco with Jesse trying to get into the building, word got out at the office about my divorce. Some women started flirting with me, and the guys wanted to distract me from my sadness. I brushed everyone off. In fact, I only talked to my boss, the other engineers on my project, and my administrator. All conversations were work-related. Finally, I sent my new number to my children and talked to them. The conversations with my children were brief. They offered their support, and I thanked them. As soon as the conversation turned to Jesse or anything related to her, I ended it. I could have easily gone the entire weekend without saying a word. My administrator was very perceptive and understood everything. On Monday morning, she came into my office, sat down, and asked how many words I had spoken over the weekend. I took my notebook and wrote a big 0 on it. She asked why, and I wrote, "If I start talking, I'll cry and I won't be able to stop." It's eating you up inside, Jack. I wrote, I'll be glad when it's over. She came over to hug me, but I raised my hand, and she left my office in tears. That's basically the story I told the woman sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I woke up in her bed an hour ago, hungover and feeling like a typical American. It's strange to wake up in an unfamiliar room with no idea how you got there. The room appears to belong to a woman. There was a wedding photo on the table. I realized that lying next to me in bed was an older version of the woman in the photo. She was wearing a robe, and I was lying under the covers in my underwear. It was hard to tell, but she was almost beautiful and perhaps a little overweight. "Here, Jack, take these," she said, handing me a couple of Tylenol pills. "Are you married?" I asked, trying to figure out what kind of mess I was in. "No, Jack. That's an old photo. I thought I looked good in it, so I didn't throw it away with the rest of my things from the marriage. You probably don't remember that last night we celebrated the anniversary of our divorce." "I remember, that's why I left. I don't usually drink, and I'm sorry, but I don't remember your name." "My name is Karen, and my friends quickly noticed that you don't drink. They chose me to be your guardian angel last night. Don't worry, we didn't do anything last night. I wasn't even sure you'd wake up this morning. Let's go get some coffee." I looked under the covers to make sure I was only wearing my underwear. Karen said, "Oh, right? You had a little accident last night. Your clothes are in the washing machine. I have some sweatpants you can wear. I'll wait for you downstairs. The bathroom is the door on the left." She handed me the sweatpants and closed the door behind her. Getting out of bed wasn't easy, and when I got to the bathroom, I realized I wasn't wearing any underwear. Even from the top of the stairs, the coffee smelled amazing. When I sat down, Karen handed me a cup of coffee. She said it was black and strong, just as I had requested. "Karen, did I embarrass myself last night?" "Well, you didn't try to get on top of any of us or start a fight, but everything else I think you did." "So my clothes are in the wash? Because I threw up on myself." "That's putting it mildly, Jack. I don't smell vomit. Is it going to get worse?" "My girlfriend and I put you in the shower and washed you." "I'm sorry I caused you so much trouble last night." "Don't worry about it, Jack. My husband was such a heartless bastard when he divorced me. I had no idea he was cheating on me. I came home and found divorce papers on the kitchen table with a note saying he'd met someone else. It was hard not to believe that all men were heartless bastards. And then we met this guy who was crying because his wife had cheated on him. It made me see humanity in a different light." "I cried?" "Yes, Jack, you cried. Not at the bar, but all the way home, in the shower, and when we put you to bed. My manager has been trying to make me cry for almost a year. She'll be so happy." What else did I say? Not much, Jack. Nothing coherent anyway. Why don't you tell me your story, now that you're a little sober? And I told her the story I described in the first few paragraphs. Surprisingly, I didn't cry again. I told her that I had never told anyone this story, that my children knew bits and pieces of it, and that I had sent them the photo. Karen said I should eat, but she didn't have anything special at home, so she suggested we go out for breakfast. I gladly agreed, as I was completely starving. My clothes were dry, but my shoes were still wet, so I borrowed her son's sneakers. We had a very pleasant chat over breakfast. She was a software engineer, so we approached things with the same engineering logic. She had 2 sons who were students. My eldest had already finished his studies, and the 2 younger ones were still in school. But when breakfast was over, so was our time together. We both felt it. Karen, let me invite you to dinner next Friday. Why, Jack? Why are you inviting me to dinner? Let's try to repay my guardian angel who took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself. Or as a person I'd like to get to know better, or maybe because you're the first person I've been able to talk to about the most terrifying experience of my life. And since you've already seen me naked and crying, how much lower can I go? Jack, I agree, but you have to understand that I haven't been with anyone but my husband for the last 25 years. Then we're very similar, Karen. Maybe it's fate. When we pulled up to her house, there was another car in the driveway. "That's my best friend Joyce. She helped me with you last night. She wants to see you sober." "I guess that's a step up from the man she met last night," I said. "Hello, Jack," Joyce said as we entered Karen's house. "I'm glad you're alive, although I was very worried last night. By the way, do you mind if I send you a bill for cleaning your car?" "I'm so sorry, Joyce. I don't know what came over me. I don't drink, and I'll be happy to pay for the damage." Joyce smiled, and I was almost certain that I would never see the bill and that her teasing would never end. She seemed like the kind of person who believed that the world should be laughed at, and she would be the first to do so. Finally, I said goodbye, thanked them both for their concern, and went home. My apartment seemed different. Everything seemed different. Monday at work was different too. My manager jumped on me as soon as she saw me on Monday. "You better start talking, Jack. I'm guessing the number of words you wrote over the weekend is way above 0, she asked. As if I had diarrhea, I told her the whole story of my weekend and the end of my marriage to Jesse. I couldn't bring myself to stop talking. My manager came over and hugged me. I didn't stop her and hugged her back. "You don't know how happy I am, Jack. I was so afraid that one morning I would come to work and find you hanging from the ceiling because of a woman who doesn't deserve you." My assistant suggested a place where we could take Karen out to dinner. The place was booked a year in advance, but my assistant knew someone who could get us in on Friday. Karen was shocked when I told her where we were going. When I picked her up, she looked like $1 million. I probably told her she was almost beautiful, but that night she was so much more. I think I told her she was beautiful at least 10 times on the way to the restaurant. We were seated quickly, and all the waiters knew our names. After we ordered, Karen excused herself and went to the ladies' room, and when she came back, she was a little out of it. She said, "There was a woman in the ladies' room. We were touching up our makeup, and she asked me how long I'd known Jack. I replied that it was our first date, if you could call it that, and that I had only known you for 2 weeks. I also told her that it was my first date in decades. She said that you were a very special person, and that I was very lucky. She also asked me to tell you that Jesse was happy for you. Was this the Jesse I was thinking of?" "I think so." "Then I'm screwed. She's not for me." The first date led to a second, and then a third. Of course, my assistant asked for details, and she was disappointed to learn that Karen and I hadn't slept together yet. On the third date, Karen seemed a little off. We went to a comedy show and then to her place. "Talk to me, Karen. You've been off all night." "This is going to be difficult, Jack, and I'm very sorry. According to the rules of divorce, if you agreed to a third date, sex is no longer taboo. But I have to tell you, Jack, that after my divorce, I had a sexual relationship with Joyce. I don't know what to say. She's been there for me for so long. I'm sure I would have given up long ago without her." Thousands of thoughts raced through my head as I tried to figure out what was bothering Karen. Maybe I said or did something to hurt her, or maybe she wasn't as interested in me as I was in her. It never occurred to me that she was a lesbian. I started pacing around her living room. "Talk to me, Jack." "I'm sorry, Karen. I don't know where to start. I have nothing against you being a lesbian, but why did you even date me?" "Neither Joyce nor I consider ourselves lesbians. We've known each other since high school and have been very close ever since. We got married around the same time and divorced around the same time. You know how lonely it is to live after a divorce. We took turns pulling each other out of depression. One night, after a few too many drinks, we crossed the line, more out of sexual attraction than anything else. And it just became part of our relationship." I was still pacing the room. "What does this mean for us, Karen? Do you want to continue your relationship with me or with Joyce?" "Why do I have to choose, Jack?" Karen was still sitting on the couch, leaning forward and studying my expression. I sat down in the chair across from her. "Before I leave, explain to me how this is going to work. You'll be with me on Fridays and with her on Saturdays. Some kind of open relationship. That's not what we had in mind. Damn, you guys already discussed this? Maybe we had too much wine again, but why not give it a try? I don't know what that is. Imagine a romantic relationship between three people who share everything: love, emotions, and sex. You should ask Joyce out on a date. Most men find her more attractive than me, and I know she has feelings for you. I started pacing the room again. One of the traits of most engineers is to immediately look for a solution to a problem rather than dismiss it as a bad idea. And that's exactly where I was. I had been out with Joyce a few times. She was always at Karen's house helping her get ready when I picked her up, and she was attractive. I need to go home and think about this, Karen. I'm sorry. I need some time to think things through. Jack, we're both engineers and we think alike. I was hoping you wouldn't reject the idea and would be willing to think about it. But do this for me, Jack. Ask Joyce out to dinner tomorrow. It doesn't have to be anywhere fancy, but you should get to know her better before you make a decision. I agreed. Joyce asked me to meet her at a restaurant and sent me the details. On Saturday morning, she asked if I could meet her at Olive Garden at 7. I wanted to look her up on social media, but I just agreed. While we were waiting for our table, Joyce thanked me for agreeing to meet her. She and Karen saw it as a hopeful sign. She was attractive, maybe even more so than Karen, but I don't think the difference was significant. After we ordered, Joyce said I could ask her anything. Joyce, you're an attractive woman. Why are you sharing a man instead of finding one of your own? Karen and I were stunned when we found out our husbands were cheating on us. And, as in your case, the affairs had been going on for several months. My ex had several mistresses. Karen was the only one who kept me from committing suicide. And then we met this guy who was crying because his wife had cheated on him. A nice guy with a beautiful body. You know we had our eyes on you, right? I was drunk and don't remember anything after I walked into the bar. There were 4 of us. The other 2 girls were married. You were sitting at the bar. We were laughing, discussing who would invite you to join us at our table. Karen was our designated driver, and she volunteered. You spent the whole evening with us, and after the second drink, you started stuttering. I don't know how much you had drunk before that. So I ended up with Karen because she was the driver? Yes, the other girls called an Uber, and I went with Karen to help her with you. Our food arrived, and I asked, "How do you envision this? Are we all going to sleep together in one big bed and have a threesome?" To be honest, Jack, we haven't decided yet. We wanted to see if you were interested first. I think it would be less awkward if you slept with each of us separately. Maybe with Karen first, since you know her better, then a couple of times with me, and then it would be my turn. While all this is going on, will you and Karen continue your sexual relationship? My relationship with Karen is much more than just sex. I love her and would love her even if we didn't sleep together. But I don't want to lose the tenderness I feel when we're together. You still look confused, Jack. Joyce. Part of me thinks I started having feelings for a woman after I swore I'd never do that again. I broke up with her, and then I found out that the woman I had feelings for had already cheated on me with another woman. Jack, you weren't in a monogamous relationship. You were only on your 3rd date. And before your relationship went any further, she told you everything about our relationship. All 3 of us have experienced the pain of betrayal and don't want to cause that to anyone else. What if I give up threesomes and just want to be with Karen? Then one of us will suffer, Jack, and I don't know who. A few minutes later, Joyce took my hand. Will you see me again, Jack? We spent the evening talking about threesomes, not about each other. Maybe Wednesday? I couldn't say no. On Sunday, Karen created a group chat, and the 3 of us spent most of the day exchanging messages. They were much faster than me, and I asked them to slow down. Around noon, Karen suggested that since it was a beautiful day, the 3 of us should go for a walk in the park, instead of sitting at home looking at our phones. I agreed. Karen and Joyce arrived in Karen's car and took me by the arm. so I wouldn't feel left out. It was a beautiful day. Karen talked about Joyce. Joyce talked about Karen, and I talked about myself, my past, where we grew up, my brothers and sisters, and our children. I have to admit that I liked having two attractive women on either side of me. Joyce didn't work. She had filed for divorce and hadn't worked since her husband started cheating on her. She spent most of her time volunteering. Karen told me a little about her job as a programmer, and I told her about how I build things. We walked around the lake, stopped to buy hot dogs, and after another lap, we stopped to buy ice cream. We joked around most of the time, but then Karen became serious. Jack, here's my proposal for this week, or rather, Joyce's and mine. On Wednesday and Friday, you invite Joyce to dinner. On Saturday, we all have dinner together. What do you think? Everyone will be jealous when they see me with two beautiful women. Let's give it a try. But I can cook, you know. Karen pulled me in for a goodbye kiss. Not the first one. And then Joyce pulled me in for a goodbye kiss too, although Joyce leaned down and grabbed my butt. When I arrived on Monday, my administrator was waiting for me. She followed me into my office, closed the door, and sat down across from me. Don't worry, Jack. I've blocked the next hour in your calendar as personal time. Now tell me, does the third date rule apply? Am I the only person who has never heard of the third date rule? Maybe. But answer my question. I'll answer. But you'll never believe what I'm about to tell you, even though the third date rule was discussed. My assistant looked at me suspiciously when I told her about Karen's proposal to have a threesome with her friend Joyce. I told her about my date with Joyce and our plans for the weekend. Are you serious, Jack? I'm not ruling it out. And if I do, someone's going to get hurt. No one knows how it will actually turn out. I can book a table for 3 at a very nice restaurant, no worse than the one you took Karen to. And by the way, I accidentally booked a table for the same time with my husband. I need to get to know these two women. Do you care about me? Jack, I'll kill the next woman who hurts you. I call it self-defense. How do you have connections at all these restaurants? My husband works in finance and specializes in restaurants. He's well known in the industry, and there's no restaurant in town that would turn him down. Joyce made an impression on me on Wednesday and Friday. She was very pleasant to talk to, and I could easily imagine myself in a relationship with her. I could also imagine myself in a relationship with Karen, but a relationship with both of them. And what would the sex be like? On Saturday, the girls came over, and we all went to a restaurant together. We had just sat down when my assistant arrived. I was surprised that the waiter had left a 4th chair at the table. The girls had been informed that she would be joining us for dinner. My assistant said, I want to thank you. As I already told Jack, I expected to find him hanging from the ceiling one day. You two definitely made him smile, and why not? 2 beautiful women are interested in him. Karen replied, Don't worry. The 3 of us have been through more pain than any other person. We won't hurt Jack. Your intentions are good, Joyce and Karen, but statistics show that threesomes end badly. Jealousy usually kills them. We're aware of the risk. I didn't want to lose Karen. She didn't want to lose me or Jack, and he's pretty cute. Maybe it will work out, and if not, we'll be in the same shitty situation we were in before, Joyce said. How's your job with Jack? Karen asked. Jack is easy to work with. He's an engineer, so he's very predictable. The last year has been tough, seeing him suffer every day. I never told Jack about this, but about 2 years ago, I got promoted and had to work for some vice president. I quit. It came as a surprise to management. I agreed to withdraw my resignation if they let me continue working for Jack, and they agreed. I was going to threaten to kill you both. And she got up and left. You have an interesting administrator, Jack. Anyone else you need to keep an eye on? Karen asked. I shook my head. Let me ask you a question, I said. A little personal, but how often do you have sex? We need to discuss these things, Jack. Do you mean with each other or alone? Joyce replied. Let me add, Karen said. Before you or after you? Because before you, it was maybe once a week, but not always. You lit a fire, and it seems like last week we had sex 3 times, and that's when we were together. Not counting shower time and getting ready for bed. Our fantasies are running wild, and we don't even know if we should start with just the 2 of us or all 3 of us. We can't agree on what's best. Joyce said, I think it would be better if it was always a threesome. But Karen thinks it's better to start with a couple. It's more familiar territory. Then the question arises. Will Karen and I continue as a couple, or should you be present? What do you say, Jack? 2 beautiful women in bed with me, pleasuring each other. That's an erotic dream. I wish I were 20 years younger. Karen said, Joyce and I never discussed what we did with our husbands. I guess I'll start. Basically, I did whatever my husband wanted in bed. The only thing I wouldn't agree to was sharing him with his friends. I thought he wouldn't cheat on me. But overall, I liked everything we did. Joyce looked at Karen with a shocked expression. I never did anything like that with my husband. You don't understand how hard it was for us that night when we tried to wash you, Jack, Karen said. Joyce replied, none of us had seen a naked man in over a year, maybe even 2. But we couldn't get it out of our heads, and that's why Joyce and I started seeing each other much more often. I was sure it would work out.